Oh, look at that. This is Bring It In on draft day. True Hoop, Zoom from Quarantine show. We did a little planning. We have a lot to get to, David. Are you ready for this?
Oh, I'm ready. We've been waiting for this for a long time.
It's all speed round today, my man. Okay. So, we have 10 topics planned out, and then who knows what happens, but let's just roll through them. Topic number one, these most recent trades have affected who you think are the top contenders for the 2021 NBA title. How so?
I thought that going into the season, I had the Clippers in my, stupid mind ranked number one based on nothing other than they're really talented and I like their new coach. I think that it's just a fresh voice, whatever. And so I had the Clippers one, and with the Lakers getting Schroeder pushes them a little bit ahead. If indeed this all happens, right? These trades don't have to go down because they're really not supposed to be talking at all right now. I think that I think Schroeder's an amazing acquisition for them, Henry, because it allows LeBron to rest more. Offense go. He's a brilliant shooter now. And he also, we talked about this the other day, he adds energy and athleticism. And so I just think he pushes up a little bit. And then the Bucks getting Drew, of course. They added Drew, and who's the other guy they added? I just went blank.
Oh, Bogdanovich.
Yeah, and he's really good. The kid I watched the Sacramento play a lot last year.
Yeah.
He's a really talented player, whether they start him or bring him off the bench. And my question remains about Giannis and his shooting. So I can't put them at one. I still think the LA teams are better. But I can't argue that they're not more talented now than they were a year ago. And I just think also that the look is different, right? It didn't work with Bledsoe and just that group. It's a different group. So I just like the Bucks a little bit more now than I did before. And then the Celtics and the Nuggets.
Topic two. We're rolling right into it. The Celtics are up to something, which is
right.
Okay. Go ahead.
Right. Well, you tell us what you think they're up to based on what you've heard, then I'll opine on it.
Okay. So you're seeing some signals that you think there's the move coming. I am not pinning this on the Celtics, but there's a Ryan McDonough. He used to work for the Celtics, and then the Suns tweeted that some late breaking injury news about Onyeka Okongwu, saying that he hurt his foot. It just set off alarm bells for me. I happen to be involved behind the scenes. We should think about how injury news becomes public. Like it's essentially private. Like it's not really okay. In general, people who are entitled to the medical files of any workers, any business aren't entitled to share it. So it usually doesn't get shared unless through, a press conference or a press release. Leaked information about injuries on draft day is like a little bit of a fire alarm. And I've had an insider's view of it happening a couple of times, including this Jared Sullinger thing a few years ago. The Jared Sullinger one, he was going to go lottery for sure. Excellent player. And then this back injury thing happened. And then he fell to the Celtics. It really worked out for the Celtics, right? He did have a back injury, but anyway, the fact that this is, and there have been other Celtics instances, other Danny Ainge manipulating draft day media, having it leaked from a Celtics guy today just set off alarm bells to me that I'll bet you anything, can't prove it, that the Celtics like Onyeka Okongwu, and who knows if this works, but this seems like a gambit, the timing of it, to me.
Yeah, and these things happen. I talked to a college coach last night that has got some players in this draft, and he got a phone call from an executive asking about, hey, I just saw that so-and-so has a medical red flag, and the coach has no knowledge of it, never heard of it before. The kid had never had a problem in college at all. And the executive he said, you know what, I think I saw it, but I've got to go back and look at my notes. I'll call you later. And he ended up not calling back. But this kind of stuff does happen. And I don't disagree with you at all. But part of why I put Boston in the top 5 is they've got 3 first-round picks. And they just have no room for 3 first-round picks. Yeah. And so they're going to do a deal. And then they delayed Hayward's extension, right? So they got more time. And remember, I think they would have beaten Miami had Hayward not gotten hurt in the series before. Boston, it just wasn't at full strength. And who knows what would have happened. But I just think the Celtics are going to do something, whether it's a deal. I mean, if they keep Hayward, it doesn't make them worse. But with those picks and with Gordon Hayward, they're loaded. And we and I were just talking about, okay, you mentioned Okonwu, and I said to you before we came on air that I thought Daniel Theis was like no one's better than him in this draft. Not right now. He's a plus defender and he shoots threes. And then I looked it up and he's the number 2 defensive rated player in ESPN's defensive real plus minus. Like he's good. He's a good player. He did not shoot well. I think he shot really terribly actually in that series, if I remember correctly, but he's good. And so, but I just think they need bench help. And I think they need more scoring help, and nothing against Brad Wanamaker, but they need better than that to compete with these guys in the East. And they can get that, I think, somewhere.
Well, and a lot of times we talk about like, oh, the Warriors just need a center. And I'm like, well, you can't just get a center. Yeah. But this bench scoring job, these people are available. Like who comes to mind?
Yeah. You know, I hadn't even looked at it. I knew you were going to ask me that, damn it. I haven't looked at it yet, but what happens is you don't have to get it on day one, right? Boston's fine. So let's play the season out and let's just see. Maybe I'm a big believer in the G League. Maybe there's a guy that can score. This can be the best G League season in history. By the way, they might play the whole thing in a bubble. I haven't talked to you about that. Yeah, I've heard that they might play the whole thing in just one set location. As one person said to me, it won't be at the Disney bubble. They're not going to spend that kind of money on the G League, right? There might be like a Busch Gardens kind of bubble.
Also, we just learned that NBA players absolutely hate being in a bubble so much that even though it's perfectly safe, they won't do it even in a pandemic. And now they're like, we'll get these other guys to do it.
Yeah, we have the G League guys, right. They'll be the guinea pigs. But there's going to be so much talent in that G League because these teams aren't going to keep 15 plus two-way players is what everyone thinks, right? And so you're going to be able to grab somebody from there or just from one of these teams that's dying on the vine. You know, maybe the Bulls have someone that's really playing well and they're not going to make the playoffs again, which is probable. And so you can grab a guy if the Clippers break apart. So you can wait. And I'll have a better answer for you when I see how it breaks down. But the point is you can definitely find that. Not easy to find a new starting center. You can find bench scoring. And then remember too, like what TJ Warren was able to do when he first was in Phoenix and how much he improved as a shooter. And then he goes to Indiana. And for a while, he was the best player in the playoffs, right? And so Boston has that kind of structure and culture around them where they can grab a guy that was maybe underperforming somewhere else, but as a lead scorer in a secondary role in Boston, he can really flourish.
This is bad news for Brad Wanamaker, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like Kendrick Nunn for Miami, but he's not starting anymore and never will again, barring injury because of Tyler Hero. And so you don't think Miami and Boston would do a deal like that, but that would be the kind of idea. Someone just caught in a tough spot and the team says, okay, we'll trade them and Boston gets better. But I just think they're in the running for something with all that, with those assets. I don't like calling players asset, but picks are assets because they're not human yet.
Okay, topic 3. Monday, your favorite players in the draft. We listed them as James Wiseman, Denny Avdia, Devin Vassell, Obi Toppin, Patrick Williams, Aaron Nesmith. I think it's Nesmith, you told me?
Nesmith is correct. Yeah, Nesmith.
Anything to change?
No, I do want to stress I wouldn't draft these guys top 6 if I was a GM. I would probably take those top 4 and maybe even top 5 with Williams. And Williams may go top 5. I mean, I got word yesterday from sources that he may go number 4 to Chicago. And it turns out it's also been written about like on ESPN or whatever. So the Bulls could take him as high as number 4. Nesmith is not someone I would take at number 6. I'd have to look to see how the roster played out, but he is one of my favorite guys. I think he has a chance to be just an amazing shooter. And no, there's no one else. Those are my favorite guys. Avdia is someone I think is just really intriguing. We'll talk. I don't know what topic it is, but when we talk Warriors, that Warriors potential trade to trade down, to get Wendell Carter Jr. I know we'll get to it later. Denny Avdia is a big part of that. So yeah, I really like him a lot.
You've been flirting with Sadiq Bey. What's the lesson there?
I watched him on tape today. He actually reminded me some of TJ Warren. Just because the way he looks when he moves. He's a power forward that's really more of a just slower small forward, but he shoots the ball way in front of his face, like way out here for you watching. And that's really problematic as in this league. That's why I like Devin Vassell so much. He shoots the ball kind of behind his head and it's hard to get to. It's hard to contest it. Chris Paul does that a lot in the mid-range. Chris Paul kind of bends backwards and bring it behind his head. And it's hard to contest those shots. So Sadiq Bey's fine. He may not go lottery. I don't love him. He's good. I love Villanova players. That's for sure. I really like watching Villanova play. Their players, I think, tend to. Our guy Ben talked about. He just tweeted this yesterday too. The colleges that produce players that outperform or underperform. I didn't look to see where Villanova was on that, but I'd be worried about them just because he's such a great coach, their head coach, but it's not because he's such an inspirational guy. He's just a great X and O guy.
Yeah.
And I think that he's going to be a fine player, but I like Neesmith better as a shooter.
Okay. Topic 4. It has come, the NBA released its structure for the season.
Yeah.
December 12th, I think preseason games began. I'm like, wow, if you look at those COVID charts, this is just an unbelievably terrible time to be launching a league that plays in 30 cities. Unthinkable. And then this did, like, Ben Thompson's a really smart guy who loves the NBA. And he just, this is a bold call. He has no information for it. If you look at the second tweet, the idea that the NBA will all be vaccinated in a number of weeks. A lot of reasons that can't possibly be true. One of which is, if that's what they're betting on, they would have had to have secured that vaccine like a month ago or more when they figured out the particulars, which wouldn't have happened. And number 2, you cannot, as an employer, require people to get injections, right? Like it would be an option. I mean, they might have vaccine available, but there's no way everyone's getting vaccinated because that would be up to each individual because they're employees like anyone. However, it was interesting to me. Like there's a riddle here. The NBA, which knows the science of COVID maybe better than any employer in the US, and they've proven it, is now thinking they have some magic ability to do what seems impossible, which is to, with these infection levels, run a league in 30 cities. Seems to me mind-blowingly difficult. There must be some kind of magic bullet. I would place a bet on rapid accurate tests. They've already been very involved in developing that. That's what I know. For instance, there was a pretty good story about how the Timberwolves are preparing for the draft, and they're all in the war room together with masks off because they're all getting tested with some kind of active test every day, the front office staffers. Like, that seems like a no-brainer to be able to have that. I'm wondering if they're factoring in, they've been meeting with these drug companies for months. I wonder if they're also factoring in a decent amount of immunizations. It's an interesting idea.
I think you're dead right on the first one for sure. I think that there's going to be a combination of, one, we're masking up everywhere. You tell your team when you're home with your family, half these guys have families, half don't. You've got to mask up, and really imploring them when you go out in public. Those of you that don't have a wife and kids and you want to go out at night, which NBA players like to do, if there's even anything open, because pretty soon, who knows what kind of lockdown we might be in. You've got to mask up wherever you go. And we also are testing you every day, right? As they did before. And the saliva tests are coming out now, so they're not as intrusive. My son does his own testing in school in terms of the nasal swab. It's not a saliva test, I think, yet anyway. I think colleges will start to do that soon. And so the combination of being responsible, masking up, and saliva testing makes them think, I think your point is brilliant about they might be better than this than any company. It makes them think that we can do this as long, we're not flying commercial, which actually is pretty safe, very safe, but they're flying charter, which even safer, right? And they'll have all sorts of protocols in place, I'm sure, with bus drivers and whatever. I think they can pull it off. At the very least, it's fair to guess they ain't gonna bat 1,000 like they did in the bubble, right? It seems impossible to me that no one's ever going to test positive, but it is more likely that it won't spread because they're going to test that stuff every day. It won't spread badly anyway. So it's we have more virus in the air now than ever before in the history of this pandemic. Yeah. So
every bus driver, it's just a different number of bus drivers, whatever the personnel right. that will be around your team, the likelihood that one of them is infected now is just so much higher,
right,
than it ever has been.
Right, and then I don't know about fans. It's knowing what we know about the virus. Gravity is what pulls it down, like anything else in this world. And the players play on the bottom of the arena, not on the top, right? So if you have fans and they're breathing. These players are not going to be masked up on the court. The fans are going to have to be masked up. And then how do you do concessions? Like I would almost think that I've not read this, you got to consume your consumables in the concession areas. Like, you just have to ask people to always keep your mask on. How do you police it?
I mean, look, January, February may be different, but to me, like in December, like none of that is even in the realm of remote possibility. Like
Should be no fans. I agree.
Just the two teams and the TV broadcast crew, which is the whole point to make this money, right, might violate current regulations in half the NBA cities.
Yeah.
Like that, you can't put 50 people together in a building.
Yeah.
Like in a lot of places. So maybe 100 people to pull that off. So it just seems like this seems like a wow. Like, you go tell the Warriors ran games in defiance of local recommendations. They weren't like ironclad rules. Like, we know the NBA is really willing to push this, and the Warriors recently submitted a plan to 50% capacity fans. What the hell are they smoking? But yeah, to me, like, we'll see if they can not have mass cancellations. And whatever our concerns are, preseason. You know what I mean? Like part of me's like,
I wondered about that too, but I think that's a nod as much to the conditioning aspect of these athletes. The guys get hurt when they come back too fast, and this is fast. A lot of players are caught by. I got a call from an agent the other day. Worry about it. Like, how do I check to see that my players gonna be ready to start this training camp on the first? And I told him, well, most teams, not all teams, most teams will do a good job of that, slowly working in. But that's a factor. So the preseason is one way, and then also you're going to have more guys trying out than are going to make your team. And how do you evaluate it? Because they're not going to. Those last 5 guys on the bench won't play. So how do you even decide who's on your team absent some of those preseason games? So you may not see the good players playing very much in the preseason, even less than normal. The whole thing is, I actually have more confidence in the bubble working than this. I'm worried.
Well, of course, the bubble's way easier, right? Like, this is way harder. And as a reference point, when I make my preseason comment, like, okay, I'm worried about your hamstrings and your glutes and everything, but there was a paper, I didn't put it in the doc, but that the NBA games, the last ones before the end of the season, cause an average of 5 deaths per game. Yeah, doing the math on the number of people in the arena, right? Like, that's why I say preseason. I'm like the infection rates are vastly higher now, right? And we know a little more about masks and stuff, but like if somebody dies for a preseason game, like, I don't care about your hamstrings anymore. I'm sorry. Like, okay, moving on. Topic number 5. LaMelo Ball has been number 1 in every mock draft in the land for a long time, but now 3. Today he's 3rd in most mock drafts. This is actually really cool the way this looks.
What do you make of that?
Well, the idea that he's clearly the best prospect has been made most aggressively in the media. And when you and I have been talking to people in the league, like, they're like, what? And that doesn't mean that there aren't people who love him, but they're hard to find.
I've never found anyone yet, but they also could be keeping it close to the vest.
Yeah.
Every single person I've talked to, and that's from college to NBA, they all think he's a disaster waiting to happen. And some of them allow for the fact that he can grow up and become a great player. But no one thinks it's likely. No one that I've talked to, and I've talked to 24 people. I think every one of them knows basketball really well, and none of them, and some of them have known him since he was young, because they were LA based or Southern California based college level coaches, college coaches, head coaches. They're all really concerned about him, and clearly they're not doing it based on anything we've published, because I didn't like Anthony Edwards either.
Yeah.
So he's number 1.
Yeah.
I tell you, if you watch the highlight reels of Anthony Edwards, he's fun to watch. Like, if you created an and one mixtape of LaMelo Ball and Anthony Edwards, I'm watching. Well, actually, I'm not watching because I actually don't like exhibitions. But it'd be fun to watch dunks and runs and all that fun athletic stuff. But both of them I have major concerns about both guys. I do know that you can grow up and get better, and I'm hoping for both. But it's funny how LaMelo was number 1 for so long, and we come out and as a media company and say we don't see it, and now he's 3rd. And I tell you, if he drops to 4, 5, 6, like, I'm gonna be angry, because then the grift is on, in my opinion. Like, something's happening, something sneaky is going on for him to go drop that much after being number 1 for so long.
I will say this, like, the the sort of shoddy media around the draft. So I talked earlier about that Jared Sellinger thing, but like very little of what's published about the draft in the run to the draft is just everybody being a straight shooter, right? There's just a tremendous amount of effort to influence the messaging around the draft, and there's no questioning that like LaMelo is the kind of player that you can see what you want to see, and the effort to see the good things has been voracious. All right. Okay, topic number 6. This is an interesting little thing about the idea that the Warriors might trade the 2nd pick for the 4th pick and Wendell Carter. Wendell Carter is particularly interesting to you. Let's talk about that.
Well, actually, I want to bring up something you said too before to me about Mitchell Robinson, the center from the Knicks, who's only a year older than Wendell Carter and is a hell of a shot blocker, not much of an offensive player. I think the key, though, actually is Adia. If the Warriors, so why would the Warriors trade a chance to get Wiseman if indeed they have that chance? We don't know that they do. Right. Why would they trade to get Wendell Carter Jr., who, in my opinion, does not have the full ceiling that Wiseman does? The answer is because the core 3, Steph, Clay, Dre, want to not take a year and just be competitive, and they want to have a real center ready to help them with experience in the NBA to make a run this year. And Wendell Carter's played 87 games, I think, and is a talented player. And you can, when I'm done with this, I want them to hear what you told me about what you learned about Wendell Carter Jr. But if you say to Steph, Clay, Dre, we're going to get Wendell Carter Jr., and we're going to bring in Denny Avdia, who just got done playing for Maccabi Tel Aviv in the EuroLeague and the Israeli League. Both leagues are crazy. Like, they might throw batteries on fire at you in games. I'm not even exaggerating. As I told you before we started, in those leagues, dudes get fired fast, meaning coaches. There's no 3-game losing streak that may not result. I mean, you may get fired in 2 or 3-game losing streak for sure. That never happened in the NBA. 15-game losing streak in the NBA, you might lose your job. It's so much more pressure over there. And Denny's been playing in that and actually got playing time this year and was good. And as I told you, he knows how to play the role in the EuroLeague. We talked about this on Monday compared to the Israeli League when he needed to go score. So in the EuroLeague, he was 3-and-D guy. It wasn't the playmaker that he really is. In the Israeli League, he was MVP, although I don't think he deserved it. As I said, he was still very good. So you get both guys. I get the argument of doing that as opposed to taking Wiseman, even if Wiseman has, in my opinion, a higher ceiling than either player, which I think he does. Adia's got a huge ceiling, though, no question. So if you can get that guy and Wendell Carter Jr., I think it's a hell of a move. I really do. So they wouldn't surprise. I don't know if they'll do it or not, but if they did it, I don't think they're stupid. And I love Wiseman.
Yeah. No, you have me fully sold on Wiseman, but I also got some phone calls that basically like, and that makes sense that the Warriors would love a veteran. Like if they can get a veteran, and okay, the other Wendell Carter thing worth noting is, you may recall going into this past season, we partnered with these guys in this machine learning project where they were going to project box plus. I remember very well. Go back and look at it. Wendell Carter was like the standout. Like his box plus minus projections after 1 year in the NBA were outrageously good. So we could talk for half an hour about what that really means. But, when you see that the rumor is for Wendell Carter as opposed to random big, this is a young guy with potential to, show up in a way that matters in playoff series. He's not just a tall guy.
He's young and talented. I told you, he turned 19. He was 19 the entire rookie season, turned 20 the day after the season ended, obviously. So he's 21 and will be all year. Although now he'll be 22 as well, because this league is running longer, right? They're playing till the regular season goes till May. So he'll be mostly 21. That's young. He's got great hands. He can attack and score from the perimeter. I watched some tape today on him. Because honestly, as I told you, I haven't even watched the Bulls and the Knicks very much because they've sucked for so long, and so I should have watched them. I've watched him here and there. No, he's a talented player, and that combination is like, I get it. You want to honor your core 3 who don't want to wait a year. Like I thought LeBron, I'm stupid. I thought LeBron when he went to Cleveland, I told this to David Blatt, the head coach. I said, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't want to trade Wiggins, even though he doesn't like young players, just because it gives him a year to breathe. No one's expecting to win a championship that year with Wiggins as one of your better players as a rookie. And then boom, the Kevin Love thing comes down, all hell breaks loose. I was wrong. LeBron didn't want to take a year off. He was probably smart to do so because you only have so long of a window, although his window is pretty long. I can see
the
those
longest
guys
window,
wanting,
but still short.
yeah, right. It's still, I could see those guys wanting to do a little bit more. But I tell you, James Wiseman, I don't know. People keep writing that he isn't a sure thing. I don't understand why. Was Joel Embiid a sure thing? And this guy's never had an injury. He wasn't allowed to play because he got paid. His moving expenses got taken care of by his high school coach, who became his college coach. That has no impact on this. Zero. It's not a stress fracture. It's not. It's just an off the court issue. Everyone I've talked to just raves about him. So buyer beware if you decide to pass on him.
So Devin had a question, which is, if the Wolves draft Edwards and Warriors still have the number 2 pick, would they draft LaMelo or Weiss? Would you take LaMelo or Weissman? Dev, and I can tell you David Thorpe's thinking on this.
Yes, but I take Weissman. Are you not paying attention, Devin? We're not making that clear. I normally thought I communicated decently. Yeah, that's Weissman. I wouldn't take LaMelo Ball. It's just like I wrote it. I want to say this about LaMelo. It's fair to say this. We've talked about this before, Henry. I watched ESPN sent me to watch DeMarcus Cousins when he was a rookie. I got there 2.5 hours early whenever they let me in the gym. I watched him warm up, and he was just goofy as hell. He was just a goofy motherfucker. He just goofy, just dancing to the beat. He was just weird before the game. I mean, hours before the game. And then he got in the game, and his talent is overwhelming. But DeMarcus was also just a jerk. He was just a jerk. And last year for the Warriors, and before that for the Pelicans, I don't think so. Like, I think he was fine. I actually loved him for Golden State when he finally got healthy. I thought he completely played his role, and they would have eased into the championship had he not gotten hurt, even with Durant getting hurt. And Clay also not lost his knee, right? And Looney gotten hurt. They would have easily won. DeMarcus would have been such a good player. He grew up. It took him a long time, but it happened. LaMelo Ball, of course he can grow up. I don't know that ever learned to beat people off the dribble one-on-one that are guards. He struggles with that more than people realize. He's very good in transition, but he's allowed to grow up. I hope he does. It's just a lot of risk for a guy that has such a big floor, in my opinion, a low floor, I should say.
So Devin's now, Devin, I want to address this important thing you're bringing up. Seen reports the Warriors ain't entertaining the idea of drafting him. Now, here's what I want to think about what we were talking about earlier with the misdirection around the media.
Yeah.
If you're the Warriors and you believe that James Wiseman is like the next Moses Malone, like the greatest thing in the world, then the worst thing that could happen, so you're in a meeting and everyone's like, yes, Wiseman. They go around, they're all set. This is the only player they want. They think he's better than Steph, right? Let's just pretend that's where we are. There's a crisis, because if that's what the media version is, then anybody who can get the first pick can demand anybody they want from your roster. And this has happened, right? So like, you just need to send out, you think about it like that, what happens in that room is not leaking at all, unless they decide to, right? So the strategy of calling up your Adrian Wojnarowski's and your Mark Steins is to confuse everybody, right? Because the worst thing is they know what you really think. So you got to send out a signal. You got to pull everybody aside with like, hey, we really like that. You got to do it for everybody. You got to do it for Denny. You got to do it for everybody, which means we're the suckers reading it all and believing it, right? So
exactly right.
It's
the, we're reading about how LaMelo I read this on, I think it's ESPN today. It's such great workout for the Warriors, whatever. What do you think the Warriors are going to say?
Right.
Like, come on. Are they really going to say he just wasn't very good? That's just so stupid to even think that they might. So I told this to Henry yesterday. You would not allow us to write that. You say, you're being played.
Right.
So let's just not comment on what the Warriors leaked about how the workout went. All right.
Yeah.
Even if they said it didn't go well, I wouldn't believe that either. And normally the negative stuff comes from other agents, right? Who are trying to create some kind of red flag issue so that their players can move up. I mean, it's a truly a zero-sum game situation for these guys, right? If you are going down, someone's going to be going up, okay? and vice versa. So yeah, you don't believe any of that garbage. And even all these trade talks normally, well, let's look at it. Woj wrote about what was the big trade the other day? And I don't remember if it was the Lakers one, but he acted as if they were just talking about it. And I even tweeted, who leaked this? There's a reason it was leaked if it was just talk. And then the trade actually happened. Okay, that's different, right? They came out of left field. All these other trades, no one was speculating about this. People thought maybe Chris Paul and Phoenix, but there was no definitive stuff. It was obvious they were a team that they could look at with him. Monty was Chris Paul's first coach, right? And they got along great. Normally you see it after the fact because teams keep this stuff close to the vest until it's done and then they release it.
Yeah. So Devin, to your point, like LaMelo did impress Warriors. Well, we don't know.
Yeah.
Warriors execs said to reporters that he impressed them. Different thing.
I can speak with authority on this. I've had lots and lots and lots of players work out for lots of teams. I had 1 year, I had 6 players drafted in the same draft. Okay. And what I was told, because they gave me real feedback, and I was at ESPN, but they knew that I would never release it to anyone because they would give me feedback about my player. And if they ever wanted to get my players to work out for them again, they were going to have to tell me the truth and trust that I would never release it. And I never, ever did. But what they told me and what came out other places,
totally different.
Yeah. This is the game that you have to play, right?
Yeah.
So
one of my favorite stories about this, honestly, is let's see if I can test my memory banks from way back, but I'm pretty sure what happened was Houston Rockets executives were in a restaurant saying how much they were all set. They were picking Randy Foye. Pretty sure. But they had to set up a deal with Minnesota. To jump up 2 spots to get him. And then in the restaurant was someone who worked for the Blazers who knew they wanted Randy Foye so bad. So the Blazers take Randy Foye, and then they forced Houston to do a deal where they end up getting the player the Blazers wanted, who's Brandon Roy, who they couldn't have otherwise gotten. And like, just knowing what Houston wanted was enough for them to do this. Sam Hinkie did one with the Magic too. I'm forgetting now exactly how it went down, but same deal where, anyway, just having people know who you want is a problem, and they know who you want if you don't say after every workout, like, "Oh,
great,
amazing," right? That's the only way. Okay.
Right.
Okay, here we go. Actually, I'm very fired up about this next topic. Topic 7, Anthony Edwards. Oh my gosh. So I think on Monday, on ESPN.com, Alex Scarborough's story about Anthony Edwards. I'm realizing how rare this kind of story is. His journalist who spent like a couple of hours with a prospect and then, interviewed people about him. Like mostly it's been just YouTube and nonsense. But Alex Scarborough, hats off to you. You get a sense of the guy. One of the lines that he said was basically, he's not that into basketball. It was about what he watches on TV. And people basically it's all over Twitter. This is the only thing people know about this story. And they're like, can you really draft this guy? He's no good, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't love the game. Here's my thing on this. Oh, here we go. Okay. So when did he get into basketball? I'm still not really into it. He says, I love basketball. Yeah, it's what I do. That's just the quote. That's what made it to the public's consciousness about this. Okay. So I am, you wrote, David, you had concerns about his motor back in March.
Yeah.
So like for sure. And there are plenty of reasons to be concerned about Anthony Edwards. However, I would just point out that was one quote. 2, he is a super athlete who's incredibly hard, right? Like P3 says he's one of the best they've ever tested. Yeah. So in terms of doing the work, don't worry about it. He's done more work than any of us have, right? Like the dude's worked his butt off. Like you don't know more than he does about what it takes to motivate people to do elite work, right? He knows more than you do. Everybody hearing this, right? What is going on in this story, which is a 5-alarm fire to me, is he's a completely traumatized young man because the 2 most important people in his life both died within 7 months of each other. His mom and his grandmother. His dad's not very in the picture. His Georgia coach, Tom Crean, who was like Dwayne Wade's coach and stuff, says in that article, where Edwards is drafted is crucial, Crean says, because he needs support. That's where I think, like, here's what I'm taking from this is he might have, in the right setting, all of the tools to be unbelievable. And I'm not sure the NBA has the support. Some teams do, but like, is it, does the NBA have the structure to help someone grieve? Like I don't know, probably not, right? So this is to me where this article was taken as like, oh, I found a flaw in the player. I'm like, yeah, he's been through some stuff, and he's not a sure thing, but boy, are we as a league set up to get the most out of this guy who has the potential really to be a superstar.
Man, I don't know how I follow up with that, because first of all, I feel so valued because you've listened to me for a long time, and you sound like me. This is what I've always been saying. The league does not have. No, you have your own brilliant thoughts too, of course.
But this is Thorpe in my veins here. Yeah.
Yeah, this is like the NBA is no expert at they're expert at putting on basketball games, but at developing the consciousness and unconsciousness and all these going on of human beings. Sorry, no. It's hard to do anyway. That's granted. It's hard. And so my first thought reading the article was, God, I think Miami should trade Tyler Hero and whatever you need and get that kid and just have him move into Dwayne Wade's house. They play similar to each other. They both played with Anthony Edwards could one day play like Dwayne Wade. All right. Not everyone can say that. Okay. LaMelo Ball, as talented as he might be, he can't play like Dwayne Wade ever could. This guy can. He's a human dynamo. He just doesn't turn it on very much, right? Dwayne always had it turned on. But Dwayne Wade was always the Flash. Anthony Edwards is rarely the Flash, okay? Most guys can't ever be the Flash at all. Moving to Dwayne Wade's house, Tom Crean coached both guys, and Dwayne's, I think, even tweeted about him. I think, I'm not starting a rumor here. I don't think they're trading for Anthony Edwards, but it would be cool. And I don't know that the Heat are any good at doing this, but Dwayne is good at loving people. He proved that in Miami. He knows how to do it. I think you're exactly right. I remember the Rockets drafted the young man that had a fear of flying. I've just gone blank.
Royce White,
right. And I mean, back then I even said, who are they to think? I mean, I have a bachelor's in psychology, which only means that I have a great appreciation for how fragile our minds are and how ignorant most of us are about it, right? I didn't get a master's and PhD, and maybe I would have more a specific skill and knowledge. It's hard to think that you're going to be able to draft this young man and just fix it is just naive as a basketball organization. Anthony Edwards is different. Same as DeMarcus Cousins. There's lots of issues that go on with players. The right team can get the most out of him, but they tend not to draft in the top 3, by the way. The fact that Golden State is in there is a unique situation. I'd bet on them. Like, I still would take Wiseman over him for a lot of reasons, but they're an organization that seems to understand better. But I know this, just reading that, you better hire. Most teams have a psychologist now. He might need his own. And I mean that in a good way. You and I talked many years ago when LeBron was so bad against the Mavericks. And I said, in your article, you quoted me, he needs to consult with a psychologist. And we didn't know this for years, but he did. Yeah. Because what he went through was traumatic. LeBron went from being the best player in the world to fucking sucking to win a championship. You got to go talk to a professional. Like, your mind just can't fold that in easily. It's not like being bit by a mosquito. It's a big deal. So, and
quarantine, like doom scroll,
right,
and then get called out for the first comments you make is like basically everyone's saying like stick to the script of the tough guy.
Yeah,
they like exactly wrong. Like it's all exactly wrong.
And to something you've been saying a lot behind the scenes to me, the fact that he says he doesn't watch basketball, that didn't even make my heart putter even a little bit faster.
Yeah.
Get used to it. These guys don't watch basketball. He's a teenager. They don't watch basketball.
Right.
But you don't have that body and score 37 points against Michigan State not working.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't, you're not born with that. You have to work your ass off. And you can shoot and you can handle and all of that. It didn't come just naturally. But none of these guys watch. I tell you when they start watching, when they fucking want to start winning games.
Yeah.
And that normally is when you're a grown man.
There's a little part about ping pong. You remember this little part of the article about ping pong? So they're all locked up, quarantining in Georgia, and it's like a trainer and I think anyway, a small number of them, and there's a ping pong table, and so they start playing ping pong, and he's never played before, and they were just terrible ping pong, and I think that's it. Like, well, he won't be playing ping pong, but by like day 3, he's using like English and spin and blah blah, and he's YouTube researched all this stuff, and I'm like it doesn't matter if he says he loves ping pong or not. It matters. Does he go figure it out? Does he go solve the riddle? Does he do the work? Right. And they were like, yeah, he was really freaking good and competitive after a few days. And so, that'll work. That's JJ Redick going to Magic and not getting minutes and then learning how to play D like a crazy person, right? Like, as long as you're willing to be super pragmatic about just do the next challenge, you're fine.
And it goes back to what we were about with LaMelo. You got to be competitive. You have to want to be successful. There's a famous baseball player. I don't remember his name, but I watched him on Le Batard's TV show one day, and he was 40. I think he was still pitching professionally at the age of 40 or 42. And Le Batard said something about being a baseball guy. Well, you're a baseball guy. And he's like, actually, I'm a basketball guy. He's like, I was a very good high school basketball player that had scholarship offers for basketball. But pragmatically, my dad and I figured out, my parents and I figured out, I probably had a better chance to be a professional in baseball. So I just chose baseball, and he chose wisely. He was still playing. I mean, God knows how much money a guy makes when he's 40 and still pitching in the major leagues. But he's like, I'm still a basketball player. It's what I do in the off season, but it's his job. And so you just have to love you're doing it, but you don't have to go watch games. It's great if you like it, but you got to be willing to put in time. Most of these guys, I mean, almost all of them are, and I'm not worried about that for him at all. There's other things to worry about, not that.
And football for Edwards was like, this was where his mother and grandmother were last, like on the sidelines cheering for him. His life was good, right? Like those were football games. So like, that's what he's talking about there. Like football's going to be first for him, right? And
what position did he play? Do you know? Was it running back or linebacker? Because he'd be, I mean, tight end. You forget, remember in football, the average running back is 5'10". Think about how diminutive that makes. Chris Paul towers over that, maybe. Kyle Lowry is that size. This guy be a defensive end linebacker. He's a stud of an athlete. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. We have 2 topics left. Let's see if we can race through them and get drawn here with a reasonable amount of time to talk. Okay. Yeah. Topic 8. Lakers got a lot better.
We talked about that. Yeah. Just the Schroeder deal is a good deal. And it gives LeBron that rest that I talked about. I also wonder if he was such a good shooter last year. LeBron has just another playmaker to play with, to pass to for a shot, and it also gives Anthony Davis. I mean, he's a better scorer. Dennis Schroeder's a better scorer than anyone the Lakers had this year after AD and LeBron. Mm-hmm. It's a big deal, and he can be a very good defensive player. He isn't always. I think his numbers last year might have been really good. They should be. Super long, athletic, quick, energetic guy. And I said this on Monday that I've heard teammates talk about he's just kind of a weird guy. And now he's in LA, and that could be problematic in the Lakers. But I just feel like LeBron, you said something really smart going into the bubble last year. LeBron's OCD really helps him, really helps them. Well, that bubble had nothing on this year, right? I know my son is getting scolded in a good way by teammates about, don't be messing around. We want to have our senior season or whatever, right? But I love that peer pressure. How do you think LeBron's going to handle Dennis Schroeder? Like, hey, man, we gotta go easy going. We have a long way to July, and we don't want any hiccups. I just see him. This is really good for Dennis. I think Chris Paul helped Schroeder. It's not. It shouldn't get worse this time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, topic 9. I said we had 2 left. We had 3 left. You've got a trade, David. You got a trade to propose. The Washington Wizards and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Talk me through it.
Yeah, I thought that I think that the idea that Beal and Wall are going to be the anchor for the Wizards' resurgence is just naive. And we don't have any idea how John Wall is going to play. And I can understand why.
Right now, by the way, is missing the number 1 overall pick, right? The idea is this is really a trade.
Yeah, you're going to, So basically, I don't include any trades in there, any draft picks in there. So to me, if you're the Wizards, you don't trade Beal to honor John Wall, because if you trade Beal, it's like when Harden leaves and you're still Russell Westbrook in Houston. The Wizards are young and not very good. Maybe they re-sign Bertans, and that'll help a little bit. But they're young, and I don't know how talented they are yet. We'll have to see. But so to me, you trade Beal, you get Wiseman. In this trade that I did, Jarrett Culver was the number 6 pick a year ago. James Johnson, you have to do because he has to opt in first to make the money work. $16 million a year, I think. And then Jake Layman's got a great contract. He's a good player for 2 years, this year and next. And then I would get a Kogi because I think you can, and I would get Naz Reid, who was I think he was a two-way guy, and they upgraded him to a full contract. He's a talented player, I think, from LSU. And so the Wizards bring Bradley Beal with Russell and Cat, and I think he's the perfect fit because he is an all-around player. He's an excellent defensive player. He can play with Russell. He can be the leading scorer. He can be the third leading scorer. He won't care. He's a consummate pro, great teammate, all-star. Minnesota becomes very interesting, and then you have to fill in the gaps there's plenty of guys to fill in. And now the Wizards build around Wiseman, Hachimura last year, Culver, Okogi's 21 years old, I think. And they might maybe get a future one. You never know. They're trading Bradley Beal. And other people are going to go after it, but you're not going to be able to get Wiseman. I would take Wiseman if I was them. I think that's what I would do. And I think if I'm the Wolves, I do it too, because they immediately get a player entering his prime with two guys not quite there yet. They become an interesting trio, a good trio, a very good.
So, and that kind of wraps into a theme of talks to very smart people yesterday who are basically saying that like a thing transfixing the league right now is front offices and owners who don't want to be the team that the star turns on, a little like what's happening in Houston right now.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes, the idea that the Suns would upset Devin Booker is like, determining everything. So at the moment in Minnesota, the real game is, can you please Karl-Anthony Towns, right? And so this is the kind of move that, it's different from, how can we put together the best possible roster? It's how can we keep from having a big public spectacle where we lose our star? That this to me, I don't know what Carlin thinks about Bradley Beal, but this checks that box of, okay, we got you a roster here, right? If you're the Timberwolves, if they take one of these top rookies, it's tricky, right? Like who knows if Colin Towns feels thrilled about that.
There's no sure thing in the drafts compared to Bradley Beal. Like these are two different universes. Yeah. This guy is a perennial all-star who also, as you said, how does Cat feel? Like I'm not aware of anyone that has any issues with Bradley Beal. He's just a super pro. And it's a very, very, he could be their best player, as talented as Cat is. And he's been around. He and John Wall were very good in the playoffs a couple of years ago. Very good. John Wall got hurt. In fact, we were doing on your command. I was doing an MVP list every day during the playoffs. John Wall was leading it going into the second round. And then he got hurt. I don't remember. I think they beat the Raptors in round 1, and then he got hurt in round 2. Beal was a big part of that. So he's got some experience that I think that would help Russell and Cat. I like D'Angelo Russell a lot. I think he would help them a ton. And then the Wizards get their number 1 pick, and then Tommy Shepard as a GM can kind of build around 3 or 4 really talented young guys.
Yeah. Okay. Number 10. It just like the buyers in the pick market have been the Thunder and the Pelicans, and they just have more than they can ever use.
Loaded. Yeah.
Mathematical that they will be trading those picks, like they will bundling them together and trading for other things. They simply can't have that many rookies through the years. There won't be enough roster spots. So it's a game of arbitrage. They're skilled at this, right? So you get the thing when it's cheap, and then you warehouse it, and then you trade it when the price has gone up. Like there's nothing to say that the price won't go up today, right? Like it's absolutely possible that the Pelicans and Thunder will splash out on something, someone, some deal right away. So as we're talking about, and this is where Bradley Beal comes up a little bit. I happen to be involved in this thing on Bradley Beal's draft day, where at that time the Thunder were the class of the West, known for being extremely persnickety about personalities and work ethics, this kind of thing. They had a certain organizational ethic. And the rumor was at the time that they really targeted Bradley Beal in that draft as the guy that they wanted. And I was in the same room with Bradley Beal when we got wind of this. So I walked over and I was like, hey, what's the deal with the idea of playing with the Thunder? And I don't remember exactly what he said. And but I can tell you that Bradley Beal was like, hell yeah. Like he was like, he subtly indicated that he was absolutely fine with the idea of going to the Thunder. These little romances develop through the years and usually don't come to fruition, but like that kind of thing, it could happen. Certainly, the Thunder have the assets to make a trade like that. It's not out of the question that at some point we see the Thunder, the Pelicans being.
I think it's smart thinking. No reason to wait. Both teams have really good young players. You can add very, very good players. And the Thunder have 17 first-round picks in 5-6 years. That's a lot. They can play a little bit. Boston might be a team with three ones to go after Beal, by the way. The Thunder, I don't know how they could do it. They just don't have any players on salary enough unless they traded Adams. I'm not sure why Washington would do that. But Boston's got a number of picks that might be interesting. And Beal on their team, you'd have to you go small a little bit. You go Tatum at 4, exclusively Jaylen Brown at 3, and Bradley Beal at 2, Kemba at 1, with Daniel Theis at 5. It's pretty good. That's really good, actually.
Really good, actually.
Really good, yeah.
All right, Gerard, we did it. We got through our 10 topics. Now I want to talk about Greg brings up an interesting topic about all I want to talk about is just the flaming pile of the Rockets.
What do you want to talk about, Gerard? Whatever you want.
And that broke boy, Tillman Fertitta.
Well, I love that. Broke boy.
It's interesting, and I want to just touch on something that Greg brought up the article. Look, they didn't just find out Tillman was a Trump supporter, right? Like this isn't brand new news. They've been known this. And I said this in the chat that NBA players are an interesting trick bag politically. You all know I talk about the number one band in the world of all time, the capitalist machine, at a regular pace on this show. When you are an NBA player and you're at the top end, you're insanely rich. You make a lot of money. You know what rich people hate doing? Paying taxes and giving that money away. You know who doesn't let rich people do that? Republicans, right? So this is very odd and weird place. And we all know the Jordan quote, Republicans buy shoes too, all that jazz. From a money standpoint, they tend to like Republicans because it helps them keep their money. All right. So that's just a little aside for you all to know. So
Androd, if you put an ethics screen on your bosses, you practically can't play in professional sports. Right? So like you get to, like, if Tillman does 50 things wrong and you finally want a divorce, then you can say, and I don't like your Trump support, right? The Nets have an owner who repeated Chinese intelligence line of reasoning. Does Harden love that? Like, maybe, but I kind of doubt it, Like the fact that you're working with a creep. Like, you're working with a creep no matter what.
When we're talking about this kind of money, there are no clean hands here, all right? Yeah. Like, these dudes are not good people. So that's what that is. Moving on, I was thinking about the draft and like trades and all this stuff. And so Houston, apparently an ESPN report came out and said they're willing to play tough with Harden and Westbrook, meaning, well, we don't care if they don't want to go anywhere. We're willing to bring them into camp anyway and make it an awkward situation. Like, how terrible. I mean, the owner can say that because he's not in the arena every day or at the practice facility. This is Steven Silas has got to deal with this every day. This is the GM that's got to deal with this every day. He's the one that's got to literally, and that puts your coach and your GM in an impossible situation. Because now you have two guys who are annoyed and don't want to be here, and you got to somehow figure out how to run a team and do what you have to do. And it's this very strange thing that GMs and teams are in, which is, again, why we should have abolished the draft. You would get killed, any team, if you, and I this is always coach's point, if you don't know a guy's going to sign an extension, you move them, right? Because you got to get back whatever you need.
Yep.
Problem is, you will never survive that publicly, right? Moving a guy like Giannis or Kevin Durant or whoever with 2 years left in their deal. You're going to get killed by everybody. And you're never going to get back whatever is equal value in return, right? So it's almost like this impossible shell game you play when you're a GM. And I don't really know what the fix is for that.
I just would, this Rockets thing is a massive thing. I'll probably end up writing a big story about it. I was on the phone about it all day yesterday. There's so much going on. It's confusing and weird. But two little things that are very relevant to what you just said. One is everyone's like, Steven Silas is the nicest guy in the world. Like, he may get destroyed by this nightmare of a situation.
Yes.
But everyone's like, he's the best guy. But we're worried about him, right? Number two, Rafael Stone, who's Daryl Morey's replacement, has been with the Rockets for a very long time, and he's a lawyer who comes from like an M&A background. and he's very knowledgeable about like the TV deals. On every phone call, the idea is Rafael's a deal guy, which means you take positions to get the end result that you want. Which means when I read that article about we're happy to have an uncomfortable situation in camp, like that's a poker move, right? This is a bluff. Like this is basically saying, like, if you admit to any weakness whatsoever and say like, yeah, we're a little worried about James, like your offers are halved, right? But if you're like, hell no, we're keeping everybody. We love our team. We're running it back, like, which he's been like consistent on message. Like to me, that's just Rafael. To me, that's like, it's just up in the value. It's just, this is what you have to say to keep the value from slipping, and it's nothing else. It's just like, I'm all in. That's all I'm saying.
If you're, and that's how you have to play it, right? To your point, you have to have that poker face, or else you get killed in the deal, right? Everyone gives you crap. If you're, all right, so you're Houston, you're the GM, and I am the Nets GM. All right. Okay, we want Harden. You want to get rid of him. How about I give you Kyrie and Spencer Dinwiddie and Jared Allen and some picks or whatever the hell to make it work? Does that work for you if you're Houston?
So they made a weird roster to play small ball, and now everybody who believed in that, and the organization was kind of bifurcated. Like half of the team was really comfortable with this, and half weren't. Well, one half got kicked out, and now we're left with the other half running the organization. So everybody who believed in that wants out. So now, the sort of back of the envelope calculation of one guy who worked there for a long time yesterday said like they're going to be the worst team in the league. Like they're going to be absolutely terrible now because they can't get anybody on board with the new plan. So to me, like Kyrie in that environment, it's just a bad idea, right? Like
no, I'm thinking if I'm the Nets, right, I can't give up all my depth to get James Harden, right? Because while James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving sound great on paper, like as we talked about the other day, I need other things. I can't win with just 3 guys. I have to put 5 guys on the floor, and I need a bench, right? So how do I not give up everything if that's what I actually want to get?
But I think they kind of already fired a coach and made some moves to just in the game of pleasing Kevin Durant, right? Like if Kevin Durant wants James Harden, this is what we're talking about earlier, like, what are you just going to tell him to screw off? Like, I think like it's a problem, right?
Well, that's the thing, right? Like these moves tell you Kevin Durant's in charge, right? Like this is what this is telling you. All of these things are telling you that one thing. And it also says they have to win the title this year or next year, or else they are screwed, like royally.
I just want to take issue with one thing. The Rockets may indeed end up being the worst team in the league, but the Knicks are going to give them a run.
Randy, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Randy.
I'm only partly kidding because I do think they can do some things. I think their guys who run the team are smarter. We'll see tonight. This is one of the best things about tonight is we'll see what some of these new guys do. And let me say this: the Rockets should not have let Darrow leave without first doing some transactions to rid them of Westbrook and/or Harden. Like, hey, you want to get bought out? Do a deal that I like first, and we'll work with you. But you put us in this mess, and I'm not mad at Darrow at all for all the things he tried to do, and I've said that before. But you make a move for us, get rid of one or the other or both, and then we'll talk about your buyout because now it's hard.
Yeah,
everyone knows these guys are trying to jump off. It's hard.
They can move Harden because he has value. Not that Russ doesn't have value, but Russ is just. It's just, oh man, that contract.
Harden's contract isn't bad like Westbrook's is.
Yeah, it's just,
bad.
Bad.
Are you going to be watching tonight, Gerard?
Oh yeah, I'm watching tonight. All sorts of stuff happening tonight. It's gonna be crazy. Recording some shows. It's gonna be a busy time tonight, but looking forward to it.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah, gonna be a weird night. That's what Judy said. That's
a very weird night.
Yeah.
I'll be up late too.
All right.
Enjoy it, everyone. Be safe.
Thank you, Rod. Thank you, David. Thank you, Judy. See you guys Friday.